It's preparing to go live stream right now.
Okay.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, guys, welcome to Mid America. This is Juan Carlos, and I have the privilege to be hosting here my friend Jerry Davis. Jerry and I go back. Okay, that's awesome. Well, guys, a long time, welcome to right, Jerry? Mid America.
Absolutely.
I think that we go back for how many years?
I think it was 1990. I believe it was 1990 when we first met when I came to Havana.
1990 when you came to Havana. So you know Cuba very well. Actually, you know Cuba better than most missionaries I know. Because you and I have a lot of adventure down there.
Yes, we did. We did. We lived La Vida Loca.
Yeah. I just cannot believe that it's been so long.
Yeah, yeah. It really, yeah, it was, I'm thinking it was May. Maybe it was September, but I had been to the Soviet Union smuggling Bibles in the old Soviet Union, and God put it on my heart, said Cuba's next. So you know, and so for 3 years I came multiple trips and spent a lot of time with you. Enjoyed.
We were so young.
Yeah. But it was awesome, man. It was.
I really have great memories with you. You were my first mentor. You were the first person that really coached me and mentored me so much. And I learned from you so much. And we had so much fun. When we used to rent those cars in Havana and go everywhere, go to every restaurant, speak in every church. I mean, have the Secret Service watching and doing all this stuff. What a time. What a time.
It was amazing, you know, traveling from the north of the island to the orient to, you know, just one side to the other,
and you know the accident that we had?
You were.
And that was amazing. You know, I believe that somehow when we rented that car, when we landed in Camagüey, and that guy came up to me and said, "You need a car." We got that car. I still believe that was sort of like an assassination attempt that they did to Warsaw, because that car, as soon as we hit the highway, something went wrong with those tires. And we spin on that highway at dead of night. You remember that? It was so dark. We couldn't see it. We missed a military guy that was sitting by the side of the road by an inch. Oh my gosh.
He was. That was incredible. In fact, I think he was laying down.
He was laying down.
The car spun and went right to next to his head. The wheel with the tire was like an inch from his head.
Yeah.
It was. Thank God, or we would have ended up in the Cuban prisons.
Oh, we would have lost a lot of weight there.
They would have got us for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. Yeah. But anyway, but I just want to welcome you. I mean, to Mid America, this program that we do, and I want to talk to you tonight. You've been around the world, and you and I have had a lot of discussions in the past about how exceptional, how great this country is. And yes, I understand that we made mistakes in the past and things like that. I understand all that. But I also know that we have corrected a lot of those mistakes. And America has come a long way. So we're not the nation we were 200 years ago. Actually, we're not the nation we were 40 years ago. We have come a long way. We have Blacks, Hispanics on the Supreme Court, on government, on sports, on Hollywood. I mean, it's not like it used to be. So this nation has worked really hard at correcting that. But I believe that somehow the West is in a big crisis due to the fact that this moral crisis that we're in, a spiritual crisis, is due to the fact that we have lost faith in Western civilization, and we're paying homage to every culture except our own. You know, and now we try to apologize for everything that we actually have nothing to do, because we have done so much to correct the mistakes of the past that in the last 30 years, America has really been a champion. We have championed human rights in the world. We have championed equality. I mean, we have done so much, you know, for the rest of the world. This is the only country that we have a quota of visas that we grant to other countries so people can come here as immigrants. So when people say to me that America is racist, that is anti-immigrant, that is the most preposterous and unfounded lie that you can really make. So what do you think about this vicious planned and organized and well-financed attempt that we have today to deconstruct this nation, to destroy this nation, to erase every vestige of whiteness, this brutal assault, I would say brutal visceral hatred and brutal assault on Western civilization, on Judeo-Christian principles. You've been in more than 40 nations. You know that the rest of the, you know what the rest of the world looks like. I mean, there's no other place like America. What are we trying to do? Are we trying to turn America into something like what you and I have seen that we know it doesn't work?
Well, Wonky, you and I have some unique perspective that most Americans just don't have. The last I checked, I think I've been in 63 countries around the world. I've been in almost all the communist countries and the former communist countries and the Soviet and then, even where I met you in Havana. You actually gave me such a unique perspective. I grew up a spoiled American, just like everybody else was a spoiled American. And I grew up, I'll be 65 in a few days. I grew up in a very racist.
By the way, you don't look it.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's hair color. What can I say? And a beautiful wife. But I grew up at a time in the South, from the Texas area in South Texas, and people were racist around me. They used the N word. I would hear even some of my uncles, some of my family members talking bad about. They would use the like I said, they would use slang terminology, and they would use that for Hispanics. They would use derogatory terms, and it was racist. There is no doubt about it, and they'd learned that from their fathers and their forefathers. And what was so unique and weird about it was I started realizing this when I was about 13 or 14, because I was a Christian, and first of all, and my dad would take me to black churches as a little boy, and I would like, wow, this is amazing. They're worshiping God. I was only 8 years old. I remember the first time my dad took me to an all black church, and I was watching people worship God much better than we did at my church. And I was like, wow, what is wrong with us? And so I started having these questions at a very early age, and it was just kind of a cultural thing. That people were doing. It wasn't my father, and it wasn't my mother, but some of the uncles and stuff who weren't Christians or anything were really very racist. And so as I started to see that, God started challenging me in my heart, and at 14 years old, I started intentionally engaging my family members and others about the subject of race, and saying, what's biblical about, what's scriptural about this? How are we right in this? This is not right. We can't just go use these terms and talk.
Some of the closest friends that you have were blacks and Hispanics.
I had
and you have a Hispanic wife.
I have a Hispanic wife. I have black sons that I've adopted into to my family that are very close. I actually have black cousins. One of my great uncles married a woman who was actually a princess in Nigeria. He was a missionary for 30 years in Africa, and he married a black woman. And I have black cousins. They're great, and I have a history. And then since I was very young, since I was first time I preached in a black church, I was 16 years old, and God put something in me to be an international kind of person. I know what it is now, but looking back then, God was just guiding my steps. And when I met you, you gave me such an appreciation for America that even I was lacking, because I got to see, as I started traveling, I'd been in Central American wars in the refugee camps, helping refugees, and in Russia, and I would see America from their point of view. And when I got to you, and you were so able to articulate and express what you thought about America in terms that were just beyond. You actually gave me an education and a newfound love, because as a typical American, I was thinking, you know what, I'm so glad to be a person that sees the kingdom of heaven as my citizenship, and every color is my brother in Christ. We're only one race. Acts 17:26 talks about that. But when I listened to you, a Hispanic growing up in communist Cuba, began to express to me your love of my country and my nation that you hadn't even been to. It just put it put a love in me. First of all, I just fell in love with you as my buddy, my friend,
We really had great chemistry. The first time we hit it off so well.
Yeah. That was, that was you. Just your heart for God, your heart for ministry, your heart for people, the love and compassion that you had, and your desire to serve.
Well, you know what I remember? Maybe you don't remember this, but I do remember that very well. When I was back in 1993, I was with you in Texas, and I remember that you took me to a store and I bought an American flag. It was a towel. Maybe you don't remember that because we did so many crazy things. I bought a towel that I wanted to take back to Cuba because I was visiting America 1993 at that time on a religious visa. And I went back to Cuba with that towel. And that towel that had the American flag, I used to go to the Varadero, the Cuban beaches, with that towel.
Oh, yeah.
Because to me, the American flag was a sign of freedom. I mean, it was a sign, it was a symbol of something beyond belief. You know, it was the land of opportunity, the land of freedom. It was the place where you can express yourself, abide by the law, prosper. Everything about America was right to me. So the reason why I say that is because the other day, see, I have an American flag behind me. I was doing a program and I got a pastor that called me, text me, and rebuked me. He says, listen, if you don't want to turn people off, get that. And this is what he said, get that freaking American flag from behind you, because that is a symbol of division. Jerry, I went off on that guy. You will not believe that. I mean, if I would have been an old Pentecostal believer, I would have said that I lost my salvation for about 10 minutes. I let the guy have it. I mean, and I'm thinking, how do you, an American, somebody that's born and raised in this country, how can you buy into this madness to the extent that now the American flag, instead of being the symbol that represents this nation, so many people have shed blood protecting this country. I mean, when we go into the Olympics, that flag waves freely. I mean, our national anthem it pays tribute to the flag. How you being an American born and raised citizen dare to say such a horrendous thing about our flag? And here's my take on that. If I sit on the table and I have 100 flags, and I ask people to identify the flag of Saudi Arabia or Uzbekistan or Pakistan or Guatemala or Croatia or Serbia or Iran, I mean, even maybe Germany or Switzerland, most people would not be able to identify those flags. But if I have 1,000 flags on the table and I have the American flag there, and you ask people, where's the American flag? Everybody points to that flag. That tells you that that flag is a universal, it's an international symbol of freedom, of democracy, of a republic that is solid. We have championed human rights leadership to the world. So when I see people burning the flag, when I see people disrespecting the flag, I really get so angry, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to destroy the symbol, what this nation, because the American flag is a symbol of America. Even throughout the Bible, you see that God said, raise up banners. Yeah. So when I see people doing that, that is not an expression of the Second Amendment, your freedom. The First Amendment, your freedom to express your opinion. That is not you using your constitutional right. because you cannot use the Constitution of the United States of America to destroy or deconstruct the nation that gave you that freedom in the name of that constitutional amendment that you have. Well, I have the right to speak anything I want. I speak my mind. Well, sometimes you should not speak your mind. You know, and I cannot believe that we have gotten to the point in this country that people that were born and raised here dare to disrespect the flag, dare to disrespect the national anthem, and then we have this woke crowd paying homage to every culture except their own. That you probably have to enlighten me tonight. I do not get, because my first allegiance is to God. I'm a Christian. My first allegiance is to him. But when I came to this country and I raised my right hand, I had to pledge allegiance. I had to swear an oath that I would defend not only the flag, but the Constitution of this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, implying that there could be a season in the history of America in which we were going to have domestic enemies, people that were born and raised. I was talking to 4 Russian friends of mine today. They came from Ukraine. These people have a business in town. They're hardworking people. They love America. They would die for this country. They would die. And they were telling me today, I don't understand what these white kids, these white people are doing on the streets, calling for the destruction of America, destroying this country. I mean, what type of Kool-Aid have they been drinking for the past? I said, well, for the past 3 decades, they have been brainwashing them and indoctrinating them in universities, in high school, and in colleges, and they have been feeding them the steady diet of hatred, explaining that America is fundamentally evil.
Exactly.
What you have in school, that's what you have in the streets today. Please, can you explain that to me? Because I clue you that you never imagined, when you and I used to have conversation 25 years ago, that never crossed your mind that we will be who we are today.
No, it's incredible. In the early 1900s, the progressives, communist thought had started with Karl Marx and his writings, and it began to seep in around the world. I mean, these are basically just these are thoughts that as believers in Christ and as in the Word of God, we saw that there is an enemy who would put these thoughts, ideas, and suggestions in men's minds. And his idea started taking off in elite circles. Well, in the early 1900s, 1903, I think it was, they took, and with cooperation, Woodrow Wilson is one of the main guys that helped do this. So he was a part of this progressive thought that took what we were teaching in schools and changed it. We used to, when our country was founded, everybody learned from the same little book how to do their ABCs. A, admit you sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. B, believe in Christ. C, confess with your mouth. Yeah. And that's how people learned their ABCs. By the way, they still do that in Jamaica. But that's when it started, when you took God out of the schools, prayer out of the schools, and took history. We don't teach history in our schools. It's unbelievable. But if people understand the foundations of our country, it was formed by flawed men, but they determined that we would write a set of principles that were godly, biblical principles that would be the foundation, and we would have to live up to them. Martin Luther King said, I'm going to cash the check that America wrote when they started this country. And that's what it was for.
Yeah. I just, sometimes I'm just having the thoughts in me, and I'm thinking, what is going to happen next? I mean, where are we heading as a nation? And here's why I'm having these type of thoughts, and maybe you can help me understand this. When you have two ideologies or two philosophies of life or two different views of the world, and they're very opposite, what you do as a civilized nation is you sit at the table and you discuss those ideas, you go back and forth, and you listen with intent. In other words, I intend to, like Stephen Covey used to say in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek first to be understood, seek first to understand, and then to be understood. So I'm going to sit across this table, and I'm going to hear why you believe that critical theory is good, that critical race is good, Project 19 is good. I mean, I want to sit down and I want to listen to you in a civilized way, trying to find commonality with you. And
Right.
I'm expecting for you to do the same thing. Now, what happens today is that we're so polarized in this country. We are so far apart. The chasm is so big. The gap is so wide that we are at the point that now our differences have become irreconcilable. Because there is no way in 1,000 years that I would turn to the left, and most of those loons and radical left wingers, they would never turn to the right. And I am terrified at the America they're trying to create, and I know that they're terrified at the America I want to live in. So when things become so irreconcilable, you know, the solution, I don't even want to mention it. I don't even want to say it.
Yeah.
But we are at that point.
Well,
that,
there's no reason that we shouldn't say it. We came to loggerheads in 1860, and we had a civil war. Now, oddly enough, it's the same situation, and people are not going to like when I say this, but the Democrats were the ones who upheld slavery. The Democrats are the ones who continually, and it took 300,000 white Republican boys dying on the battlefield to rescue this nation, to end slavery, and to keep our union strong. Now, I don't believe in any way that's going to happen again. I don't see that happening, but I do see that we need a revolution of our thought. We need what we Christians call a revival. And we, I want you to know something. I'm talking to people every day, and as I'm talking to them, and I'm talking to many people who don't believe the same way I do, and I'm asking them, explain to me why you believe what you believe. And
Yeah.
what we find out all the time is they don't know why they believe what they believe, and they are in error about what they believe because it's an emotion thought process they're using and not a fact base. And
Yeah.
so we have a major challenge, but I believe the challenge absolutely is intellectual. People need to be educated. There's such a low information. I believe it was Churchill said the biggest problem with democracy is if you spend 5 minutes with the average voter, that's going to scare you away from democracy.
Yeah, that is
Speak to
absolutely
person,
true.
they don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on that.
So
That is,
one thing you're doing now, and one thing that I appreciate about what you're doing, is you are going into a platform and utilizing it to educate people with the truth. That's all we want to say is what the truth is. People think, oh, America was just a big racist nation. No. America's founders were not all slave owners. Many of them were abolitionists. As a matter of fact, we almost didn't come to an agreement because the abolitionists who did not believe in slavery, by the way, it's a strange fact of history, but it's true. George Washington, who owned slaves, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, that owned slaves, all agreed that there should be no slavery once our nation was formed. And they wrote it in so that within 20 years, there would be no more legally allowed slavery, and in 20 years there was no ability for anybody to import slavery into the country more. It happened in 20 years. Now it took us 70 years and a war to complete that process.
right.
But America did not start in 1619. That's not when America started. America started in 1776.
That's right.
And 1778 when we wrote the Constitution. So people get that wrong and
Totally
believe
wrong.
it. That's a total lie.
Well, and I think that the dangers of that, here's something I learned, and I have authority to say this because I've done a lot of research and I have spent tens of thousands of hours, I would say minutes, studying, reading. I would say that I'm a force to reckon with because
Yeah.
I have done my own homework.
You are.
And not only that I'm a well-read guy, but the fact that I lived under it. Because a lot of these people that are theorists, they have a lot of theory, but they
Yes.
have never, they do not know how you unleash the destruction of a nation through this philosophy. Because
Yeah.
what happens with socialism and communism is that it sounds so romantic, so utopian,
Yeah.
so beautiful, because it appeals to human beings' uh, greatest feelings and greatest emotions, equality for all. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody is going to be happy, so it appears to the tender part of people. People buy into that thing. And once they buy into that thing, it's like a cancer. It metastasizes and it
Yes.
destroys everything. So, uh,
Absolutely.
one of the things that I said is that when I was growing up, and I've been in this country 30 years in America, almost 3 decades. I came here the first time in 1992, 20 years. I became an American citizen 25 years ago. And I explained this to people. I said, listen, one of the first steps that socialists, left wingers, radicals, communists do is they know that they have a base that do not even know what they're heading to. They do not know. All these
They don't.
people, the Bernie Sanders, the Kamala Harris. I'm not talking about Joe Biden because he's a puppet. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think he's a radical of the left. He's a puppet.
Yeah.
The Obamas, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Ilhan Omar, all these people, they know what they're doing. People say to me, they do not know what they're doing. I say, no, they know what they're doing. The ones that do not know what they're doing are the young people that vote for them right out
Exactly.
of college, right out of university. Is the average work in America. Those are the ones that are clueless. But these
Yeah.
people at the top, they know exactly what they're doing. So what I try to explain to people is that one of the strategies of this communist Marxist philosophy is called demoralization. The way you demoralize a nation, and I study that, the way you do it is you begin to point out to every mistake, every historical mistake that nation has made, and you magnify it. You resurrect it. You bring it from the past, and you never talk about it's in the past. You make it look like it's in the present. You make it look like it's alive today. You make it look like it never went away, like we never overcame that. And you put it in front of people's eyes on the media, on TV, on social media, on the radio, on textbooks, on the school, and you repeat it and repeat it. And by repetition, you create this environment where the things that you already conquered, the things that you already overcame, and you correct it, becomes it's such a ghost, it's such a real thing, because it has been said over and over again that even though it's not real, it becomes real for a lot of these people. So they do demoralization by magnifying the mistakes and by making sure that none of the steps that America has made to correct those mistakes, none of the good that America has done in the world or in this own country is ever discussed or brought to light. You cannot talk about how we have championed human rights. We cannot talk about how we are a nation that have allowed immigrants here. No, you have to make sure that you tell people that we hate immigrants. You cannot tell people that we're the only nation that give thousands of visas every year to every nation for people to come here. You're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to say that we have people that come from Cuba, from Venezuela, from places that never pay taxes here, and the American government gives them a check, and people that work here, that were born here, that pay taxes, that retire here, they do not make as much. My wife's father was a veteran of the Korean War. His Social Security paid him about $200 less than a lot of immigrants that came here and adhered themselves to some government benefits made. And this is a guy that was born and raised here, a patriot, fought in the Korean War for this country to liberate the Korean Peninsula, and yet he was making more money in his Social Security than that. So that's what you do when you demoralize a nation. You make white people really mean. You blame white people for everything. You make sure that you frame the issue in a way that if you're white, you share guilt and you're supposed to be punished, and you're supposed to be your culture, your philosophers, your music, the Johannes Strauss, the Friedrich Nietzsche, the Ciceros of the world. I mean, the Judeo-Christian value, the Western civilization, the Greco-Roman teaching on government, on politics is destroyed, is erased, because you don't want any vestige of that in the future generation. And what they do is they rewrite history. They produce new textbooks where they deconstruct, distort history, And this is the problem here in this country, is that we're feeding people a steady diet of half-truth. The problem with that is that a half-truth becomes a whole lie. And this has been happening for 3 decades. That stuff that you see on the streets, you say, well, it's not just, it's an injustice to blame just black people for the looting and the destruction. There's more white people doing that, you know, and they're using black people, they're using a real noble cause, the cause of black people, to fight for equality. They're using that to advance their agenda. And let me say this last thing that is amazing. One of the things that enlightened me big time, and I'm not a fan of Malcolm X, but I was watching a video, Malcolm X being interviewed in the 60s. I forgot on what show he was. And he was saying, historically, there has been a fight in America, the fight of the white man. The white man has not fought the black man. He said, the white man has fought the white man. And this is the way he broke it down. He said, there's been a fight between the white liberal and the white conservative. And he says, and out of those two, the real enemy of the Negro cause is the white liberal. They use the Negro, the black people, as puppets, as marionettes. They use them as pawns to advance a political agenda. They give them a little bit of participation where they feel needed, where they feel that they contribute, where they don't care for them at all. And one example of that is you go to all these cities like Chicago, that's been in the hands of Democrats forever, and they cannot keep it under control. Look at New York. Look at Oregon, look at Seattle, Washington, look at California. These cities have not been on Democratic control for 3 years. No, this city has been under Democratic control for decades. Decades. And I'm thinking, do you think that black people will ever come to the realization? Because I see a lot of great, intelligent black people coming out of that Democratic plantation and saying, we're fed up with that thing. We are fed up with you guys.
Oh, for sure. Well, you know, socialists use and play word games. They change the definitions of meaning. They change as soon as you figure out what they're talking about, they change to a different definition of word. For instance, Black Lives Matter. I don't know any white people. I don't know any Hispanic. I don't know anybody who disagrees that Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter to me. I love my black family. I love my black friends. I love my black pastor buddies. I love black mentors that I have. Black lives matter to me, but they will take a word or a saying that everybody agrees with. And what happens with that? You have 3 Marxist lesbian women, and they take, who, by the way, practice this. This is going to sound crazy.
Witchcraft.
Sound like conspiracy, but they practice witchcraft, and they call on dead spirits to give them instructions on what to do. Now, if you've ever thought, man, this seems so demonic, all this destruction, guess what? You're right. You're right.
You're right.
And you take a sentiment that we all love and agree with, and then you form an organization that's a Marxist trained by people who are communist revolutionary overthrowers who join with other communist revolutionary overthrowers who are white, who are a part of, some of them are anarchists. They just want to be anarchists. They want to destroy everything for the sake. But you literally have Antifa. You have these groups that are all, what do they have in common? What do they have in common with Democrats? You look back and say, you know what? There was a time when Democrats had presented, what in the world do they have in common? They all want to take the power or end the power, and they want to take control. And for the sake of power, they would destroy our country. For the sake of what? And you see that over and over again. My wife, who is an immigrant from Peru, here's another thing they take. You know, I grew up as a kid, and the words used to be illegal alien. Nobody was talking about outer space people. It was just a term for being alien from a country. It's an old term, but now illegal alien. Well, then they took that and then they started saying aliens, and we're like, aliens, okay. And then the leftists started saying, took the term. So what did we do in the government? We said, you know, people are being confused by that, so we're going to change the terminology to illegal immigrant. So then what happens? The leftists start calling them immigrants. no, but I am not against immigrants. I helped, as I recall, I did everything I could to help you become an immigrant to this country. And my wife, who is an immigrant, who is a legal immigrant, it's not legal immigrants. We want and need legal immigration. Our country thrives on it. We're talking about illegal immigration, but they won't talk. They want to trick people. They want to, they're just out to be deceptive. And the Bible has many scriptures that talk about these deceptions and these lying spirits that will come and do this. And we have a country and a nation that was built on the foundation and the principles of God, the principles of the Bible, and use the government system that you do, Greco, the different systems pulled from the best in the world to form this, and gave and spoke about it in bigger terms than they were, and they knew it. They knew that this was not a system that they personally, you and I speak in Bible teaching classes and things like that. And you and I know that we've both sinned. We have sinned. We have fallen short of being perfect. We are not as good as Jesus. But what do we teach? We teach Jesus. We teach the Bible, because that gives us a standard to live up to. And these men, when they formed our country, though they set themselves a standard that was higher than they or their thought or any other government that ever existed in the world. They set the highest standard you could have and said, we're going to live up to that standard. It may take us some time, but we are going to live up to that standard. And our country lived up to that standard. And hundreds of thousands of people, 500,000-600,000 actually died in the Civil War, but at least half, if not more, 60% were people were Republicans who were fighting to end the Democratic, malfunction of and wrong thinking of slavery. And it's sad, but to me, and I'm sorry, but Democrats are carrying on that tradition to me, and I hate to see it, but they're trying to pull us back and now pull us into socialism, which is just a nice word for what ends up being communism.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's a nice, because somebody said to I saw the stupidest statement that Bernie Sanders made a few months ago when he was on the primary, and this Russian girl in the audience said to him, listen, what guarantee do we have that your philosophy will not destroy this country? Because I came from socialist Russia. So he had the nerve to say, well, you need to understand, Russia was never socialist. Russia was a dictatorship. And the girl went, what? I mean, these people don't even know what they're talking about. You've been in Russia. We've been in Russia. Kim lived in Russia. I mean, when she used to travel with, Tom Newman on, the impact production thing. And
your wife, by the way, has been to more countries than I've been to. She's well versed, and she's been everywhere.
She's been in 48 nations, but that she doesn't talk about that. She's a very humble woman. But it's like she was telling me the other day. I mean, I just cannot believe that our politicians are selling this country. They are selling this country. Think about this. If you ask one of these people why you don't want Trump in office, they cannot tell you because of bad policies, because of the economy was bad, because it's pure hatred. I mean, it's just hatred. Yeah. They have a visceral hate against this man. And here's why I believe that. When Trump was running for office, the first enemies he made, his first enemies were not people on the left. The first enemies he made were people on the right. When he got on that debate in the primaries and he began to call all those Republicans that were running their names, and he offended them, and he called them part of the swamp. I remember one time he looked at the whole, stage and said, what are you guys talking about economy? I'm the only one that has employed people here. I'm the only one that employed people. So when he called them part of the swamp, he made, when you target Jeb Bush, which by the way was a great governor in Florida. Jeb Bush was an amazing guy. Jeb Bush was not a racist guy. He was married to a Mexican woman. He speaks Spanish. I voted for him. And if he would have been elected in the primaries, I would have voted for him too. But when you declare war on the Bush family, which is a dynasty, It's a political dynasty in this country. When you said that the war in Iraq was a mistake, that you never, and Trump was always against the war in Iraq. When you say that you're not impressed by President Bush, when you show such a disdain for that family, that political family, and you call Jeb Bush low energy, you call him, that's why you're in the polls so low and I'm so high. When you destroy someone like that, you have created major enemies. You created, when you run for office, the first thing you do is you try to have friends on your base. You try to have the party that you're going to run for to really be behind you 100%. And Trump got in there. He broke all the rules. And the first enemies he made was people in his own party. So then when he got to run against the Democrats, he had a lot of enemies already that joined the new enemies. And it's amazing. This guy has been fighting all kinds of demons.
Donald Trump, if anybody, look, if you've never spent any time in the Bronx or in Queens, you're shocked about you're shocked about how he speaks and how he talks and how direct he is and how I have pastor friends in the Bronx and in Queens that talk like that. You have to understand. These are New Yorkers. These guys. They're not gentlemen from the South. They're used to rough and tumble.
They say the way it is.
And they're direct. And if you know New Yorkers, it's a shock to most everybody else. But if you know Manhattan, if you know New York, if you know, you're talking about people who don't give you an inch, but once you prove yourself, you are in. And so Donald Trump challenged both Republicans and Democrats because he was not a globalist, for one thing.
No, he's never been a globalist.
And being the primary thing that had been happening throughout the Republican Party, especially with the Bushes, and God bless them. I love them. I have nothing bad to say about them.
For them.
But they did have a globalist mentality and philosophy. That was not what Donald Trump said. He said, "Look, I'm going to put America first," and he meant it. He wasn't kidding. George Bush Sr. was an ambassador to China. His was, let's get along with it. He was in every position of government, and he was a wonderful man. A wonderful man. His son George W. A wonderful, godly Christian man. Love him. Jeb, great guys. But when you need to break something up, when you need, I heard somebody say this the other day, and I like the way, when you need a bodyguard to come clean out the bullies that are running your neighborhood, you're not expecting somebody who's going to be sweet and nice. There is a time to be strong and tough.
Right.
And this moment in time, we needed a house cleaning. And so he's a bull in a china closet, but this is the thing I try to get people to understand. Think of the principles that are being espoused. Think of the policies that are being espoused. If you don't want to like him personally, I understand. There are things about him that I didn't personally like either. I loved Marco Rubio. I wanted to see.
There are things in my family I don't like, and yet it's my family.
We all have that. But look, he won me over. He won me over. So, he made, maybe he shouldn't tweet as much. I don't know, but there are a lot of people who actually like that. And when you talk to working class people who are out there struggling every day, working hard, and that's from the Hispanic community. The reason Trump is winning over the Hispanic vote, it's turning the corner, is because Hispanics, they are hard-working people. They are entrepreneurial in their thought process. They are business-minded. They are family-oriented, and they don't like communists.
No. See, and that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a great observation right there, because I have some people that were telling me the polls, Biden is about 5 points or 6 points, and I said I don't believe any of those polls. Here's what I believe. I've never been polled in my life. My family has never been polled. None of my friends, Republican friends or people on the right that I know of, they say, I've never been polled. But here's what I say to people to calm their fears. In 2016, I have a lot of friends, Hispanic friends in Miami, in Texas, in a lot of places, that didn't like Donald Trump. And they made a point, we're not voting for him. But not voting for him didn't mean that they were going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was not an option for them. So when they say, I'm not sure, what that meant is I may not vote for anybody, because not voting for Trump doesn't mean that I'm going to vote for Hillary. So I have a lot of undecided friends that didn't know, and then I have another ones that didn't like him at all.
Yeah.
That was in 2016. Fast forward 4 years later, we're in 2020. Jerry, I'm yet to find someone in my Hispanic friends that I have that is not voting him or her and the whole family for Trump. I have 20 family members in this town. They came right after I came from Cuba. Some of them came 10 years ago. They own their business. They own their homes. They've been working hard, 2 or 3 jobs. They went to college. They never took. They've been contributing. I'm yet to find one of my 20 family members, one that is not going to vote for Trump. So when you see this mass migration of Hispanic people towards voting for Trump, those people are not stupid.
No.
Talk to the Cuban community. I don't know if you see some of those videos. The Cuban community, they are turning by the multitudes, for Trump. They understand the language. I was talking to someone the other day, and this person, it's a Hispanic guy, that was telling me, I feel deeply offended when somebody tells me that the reason why I voted for Trump is because I'm so stupid that I saw an ad on Facebook put up by Russia, and I went, oh, I need to vote for Trump. That's an assault to my intelligence. To believe that I'm voting for Trump because somehow the Russians, the subliminal media of Putin made me believe that I needed to vote. The reason why I voted for Trump is because when I heard Hillary Clinton, it scared me to death. And the reason why all the Hispanic people are voting for Trump again is not because the Russians are trying to turn the election towards Trump. Is because those people lived under socialism, under communism. The reason why they're voting for Trump is because when they go into the website of Black Lives Matter and they see that one of the beliefs they have is the deconstruction, the destruction, the dismantling of the Western prescribed formula of the nuclear family, it scares the heck out of them because Hispanics are very family oriented. So it's not because we're so dumb and so stupid, so hung up over ourselves that we say, oh, we saw an ad by the Russian media on Facebook, I'm voting for Trump. I take that personally. That's not so a lot of Hispanics feel like these people on the left think that they're stupid, because their vote has to be given for, it's like, it's a given. Oh, if you're Black or you're Hispanic, oh, I'm going after my master following the Democratic Party guideline. That's one reason. The other thing that I do believe is that all this looting, vandalizing, destruction, it has really turned the tide towards Trump. Because a lot of people, listen, there's some people on the right that it doesn't matter. They will always vote right. They will never change their mind. And there's some people on the left that it doesn't really matter. They're always going to vote left. But there's a bunch of people in the middle, honest people, that can be persuaded either or. And when they're looking at this stuff and they're saying, but wait a minute, is this the America? When Kamala Harris says we need to destroy, we need to loot, and after election, the whole thing needs to continue. Do you think that any intelligent being that loves this country, that wants to get past all this mess, all this collective idiocy and madness that we have, any intelligent person would not vote for the left? They know that a vote for these guys on the left is one step closer to the destruction of America as it is. You'll never see this country again. And I'm telling my American friends, born and raised here, you have no idea what you're toying with. You have no idea what you're playing with. That's like a cancer. And here's the way I compare it. Radical people on the right are like a hard, like a very hard type of flu. If you get that flu, you get on the bed, it's like a COVID. People, radical right-wingers are like COVID-19. It can throw you on the bed, but you have a great chance to recover. 99% chance to recover. But radical left-wingers are like cancer. That thing hits you and you're dead.
That's right. I'll tell you something that is going to shock when the elections are done. People are going to be shocked at how many black voters have decided to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
I see it. I talk to black people every day. I've been in a network, in an organization of hundreds of black pastors. In fact, I'm one of the few white guys. I have been a minority for years because I have so many black pastors. And for those who don't know it, I've spent a lot of my life helping in the inner cities during hurricanes Katrina and Galveston. I networked 160 black pastors in New Orleans and made sure that
You have done the walk, not just the talk. You have been there.
Yeah, just in New Orleans, I put about $75 million worth of supplies. I got to be a funnel to do that, and so I have cred in the black community, and I love my black friends and my black pastors and my black family, and I'm fighting for them. Much of what I'm doing and speaking out is to fight. I'm so sick and tired of seeing how the abuse has come from the Democratic Party to black voters. I'm sick of it. I've watched this. It's like watching an abusive parent beat up a child, and I'm sick of it. And I'm fighting. And it's amazing the communications, because I have friends, that I love that are in Democratic leadership in some of the areas of the nation in the black churches, and that are in Democratic leadership positions. And when I talk to them, they will tell me absolutely. When I talk to them, how can you be for possibly voting for Democrats in the first place? You guys don't believe in abortion. You don't believe in a same-sex marriage. Your family, you're family oriented. Your community. You know the destruction of your community that's happened being in fatherless families. And these are things that they preach about. They believe in and they will preach it from the pulpit that we need to sustain ourselves, and that God and God alone is the one who can do this in our lives, and we need a system. So, but there's a shift going on. A recent Rasmussen poll said that as many as 40% of blacks now approve of Trump. That doesn't mean they'll be all able to vote, but let me tell you something. It won't take right now. Some of the black conservative leaders believe very much, and the polling shows it, that it's that we could win 25 to 30% of the black vote, and that would end the Democratic stronghold. Not only that, Hispanics, and this is the thing I love about you speaking out, very soon, white people are divided. We have left-wing white liberals that really I get so frustrated with, but Hispanics, this election, black people's votes really do make a difference in the next election because of the population change and all. Hispanics are going to decide who wins elections for decades to come, and the things that you are doing and the things that my black conservative pastor friends are doing. They're putting their lives on the line. They're putting their finances on the line. They're putting their future on the line to speak out, and I want to support them.
So we can wrap it up. I believe that the West, especially the United States of America, is going through a very profound spiritual crisis.
Yes.
And I believe, and here's the way I explain it, what started in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, and I'm talking is Christianity, because that's who you and I are. Yes. We're Christians. And we just don't identify just with the principles of Christianity. We identify with Christ. Yes. That's what calls us Christians. But what began in Jerusalem as a movement 2,000 years ago, then it became an institution in Rome 300 years later. Then it became a culture throughout Europe. You've been in Europe, beautiful churches, beautiful culture, just empty.
Hundreds of years old, empty, turned into a museum.
So
took 400 years to build some of those churches and their museums.
They're totally empty. So it began as a movement in Jerusalem, a powerful spiritual movement. Then it became an institution in Rome. Then it became a culture throughout Europe. And today it has become sort of like a business, an enterprise of America. So one of the things that I have had a hard time understanding, because I'm a pastor. And it's been difficult for me because you need to understand my angle, my perspective, where I come from. Not where I came from, because I've been out of Cuba for 28 years, but I travel the world. And I do not understand the way white pastors think in this country. And I'm thinking, well, maybe the reason why they're so quiet is because they're feeling some sort of collective guilt. Maybe all of them were racist. Maybe black people were right. Maybe white pastors are racist because if you're not talking, maybe you feel some sort of guilt. But I do not understand why in a moment like this, and we discuss this with a lot of pastors, there's this pastors are oddly quiet. They don't want to talk. And there's plenty of subject to talk, because I do understand that you want to sympathize with the pain of black people, but the way you heal is not by caving into the darkest side of the narrative. And I think that Black Lives Matter, the other way somebody asked me, do you support Black Lives Matter? I said, okay, define that. You support Black Lives Matter? I said, define it. The person said to me again, do you support Black Lives Matter? I said, can you define that? I said, what you're trying to put me is on one end of the binary argument. And I refuse to do that. You want to lock me on one corner because you look at the world in terms of black and white, God and the devil. You don't think that there could be a middle of the road. But I do believe that there's middle of the road. I don't believe that it's only black and white, or right or wrong, or God and the devil. There's other options in the middle. So I said, if what you mean by do I support Black Lives Matter, if what you mean by that is, do I support black people? Do I believe that a black life matters or has the same rights that a white or Hispanic? Do I believe? That question should never be asked. You should never come to me and ask me, look at my face, look at my family, the family I have, the scars I have on my back for the gospel, the trajectory, the years of serving or giving money away, of doing things. You should not ask me that question. When you ask me that question, do you support black people? That is a very, that question is intended to really indict a person on the basis that I might not support something that might be politically incorrect. Okay, the question you should ask me is not, do I support black lives? I support black lives. That's out of the question. Now, if you ask me, do I support a black person? My gosh, don't ask me that question, of course. Now, if you're asking me, do you support Black Lives Matter, Inc., the organization? Not even one time in a million years.
Yes.
I would fight the organization till death. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't sympathize, respect, love, and honor one of my best friends are black, like yours. I mean, I have family members that are blonde hair, blue eyed, married to black people. So
have black associate pastors, black associate managers traveled all over the world with. It's a ridiculous question.
I mean, it's just, I take it as an offense when you ask me the question if I support Black Lives. Now, what you want me to support is this organization. And the other day, I had this thing with this guy that you and I, let me just pull it up here, that you also made a comment. I was seeing it now. And I wrote this on my Facebook page. And there's a picture where there's about 4 people walking into a box, and the box is a big box, like a small building, has a name, and the name is higher education. And there's 5 people walking in there, walking through the door of higher education. And one is saying, I'm going for a degree in chemistry. The other one is saying, I'm going to study business. I'm going to be a doctor, says the other one. A 4th person says, I'm really into rocket science. And the last person says, I'll be studying law. They walk through this small building called higher education, and they come out on the other side, all dressed in black, and they're carrying signs that says, dead cops now, down with free speech, white privilege, kill white people, kill Trump. So then I made this point. I said, this is what a higher education does. So when you hear a political party promoting the idea of free higher education, I said, this is exactly what the idea really means. You know, so then I have this guy that was, I'm not going to mention him or anything, but he was just disagreeing with all this stuff. And he asked me this question. He said, why? He said, why do you fear higher education? So then I wrote back right away and I said this. I said, I don't fear higher education. I speak 3 languages fluently. I have authored 6 books, been in 30 countries. I have a degree in biotechnology. I'm very well versed and read in psychology and philosophy and history. What I fear is not a higher education. What I fear is brainwashing. That's what colleges and universities in this country have done for the last 3 decades. Teach history to anyone that dislikes their Marxist ideology. A counter narrative that opposes the ideology of the woke crowd is not allowed. It reminds me of the school systems of Eastern Europe under Soviet control. The same thing in Cuba and Venezuela. So he answered back and said, my children have degrees in engineering and English. I have many friends who are degreed from a variety of universities. None of them have encountered brainwashing. Just because someone has a different political opinion, that doesn't mean they have been brainwashed. So then I wrote back and I said, there's a difference between a political opinion and a political agenda. Many colleges and universities in this country have a political agenda. They silence and censure everyone that presents a different narrative. That is a fact. Do some research and you'll find how many times conservative voices are silenced and prohibited to speak in their college's campus. And by the way, surviving brainwashing at college doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So he wrote back and said, this hidden agenda that hundreds of maybe or thousands of universities and colleges follow, is it coordinated by whom? The deep state, the Democratic Party, Clinton, Obama? That's when you wrote something back. So then my friend Suni Dorman, which is a professor of history, she's a brilliant woman from South Africa that loves America. She wrote and she said, if you dig a little bit into the changing worldviews of our day, you may notice a philosophy known as critical theory. It was first developed by academics in the 1920s who lamented the failure of Marxism and then reworked some, but not all, of the tenets of Marxism into something new. It has been incubating in the academic institutions since the 60s, but only really became more mainstream in 2015. Herbert Marcuse, one of the founders of critical theory, talked about the long march through the institutions, a process through which this new form of Marxism would silently subvert institutions such as education, law, the media, technology from within. Books that are immensely popular right now, such as Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility and Ibrahim X. Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, are steeped into critical theory. Juan Carlos is right on. The indoctrination of students is happening. Even academia are being censored and driven out of the academy if they do not toe the ideological line. It is becoming virtually impossible to find academics, particularly in the liberal arts, but increasingly in the science, who are not left-leaning. This is a fact. Look it up if you're skeptical. So then other people, comment, and then this guy says the entire educational system at any level is saturated with an agenda. So here's what I wrote, and here's what it got tricky. He says, I wrote back to this other guy. I said, I agree with you. I believe that the reason why these militant institutions you refer to secretly and in some cases openly applaud the anarchists is due to the fact that the West today is undergoing a profound moral and a spiritual crisis due to a loss of faith in its own worth. I have a lot of friends that teach at different universities, and they feel marginalized by the large body of liberal professors who constantly resent West. I just lost the thing. Who constantly resent West civilization and pay homage to every culture except their own. They teach to the less informed students that America is fundamentally evil, and the remedy is the total deconstruction of America as we know it. It is very dangerous. These people are bent on erasing any vestige of whiteness in this country. I believe that racial warfare has come to an end in this country. The new struggle is not based on skin color, but on mental construct. If you're black, but dare to think different than other blacks, then you're not black anymore. You're an Uncle Tom, or you're white. In the near future, the fight is going to be between two different thinking groups. One group open to idea exchange and intelligent debate, and another group bent on erasing anything that challenges their far left ideology. So then the conversation, I mean, just continue, I mean, to the point that it got really very is interesting. So,
well, you're talking to a guy who is brainwashed. Brainwashed people don't know they're brainwashed.
yeah,
That's one of the things, is you're dealing with a made up mind, and
and then he was talking about that I hated people, because I was referring, I mean, to those people, and I said, well, I don't hate people. I hate the America they're trying to create, a lawless America, an America where you lose your right, to your 27 amendments. And people say, that's impossible. That's impossible. Jerry, you like guns. I like guns. We are gun owners. We have never perpetrated violence against anybody. And yet you and I have owned guns since we know each other.
I've had to use a gun to save my life before.
Oh, yeah. But, did you see, Missouri has a castle doctrine when it comes to guns, meaning that you have the right to protect your home. That's your castle against invaders. You see the case of these two couples. This friend of mine was telling me that would never happen in America. They would never take her guns. You see what happened today? They indicted those people and they confiscated their gun. This is in America. When I called my friend back, I said, hey, you see what happened? He said, I cannot believe it. I said, see, I told you. I mean, it's like President Reagan said, freedom is only one generation away from being lost. So don't freaking take it for granted, because you're going to lose it.
No, we are practicing right now free speech. We are practicing freedom of the press. Most of especially mainstream media, I mean, there's only one station that doesn't practice shutting down everything that you say and only bending one way to the left. The mainstream media has completely been overtaken, and these people are just, they've pushed us and everybody to the point. Thank God we have the Second Amendment. Thank God, because the whole reason they wrote the Second Amendment was in case people forgot about the First Amendment. Yeah. So when it gets down to it, if you decide that you're the only one that can speak, you're infringing upon my right to speak, my right to believe, my right to worship, my right to do. They're shut down. My wife is from California. They've shut down churches in California. You can go to casinos, or you can go but you shut down churches. This is a constitutional right. People are trying to take away constitutional guaranteed rights that the writers of the Constitution said, we're not giving these rights to you. These rights can't be given to you. They were given by God. So much of the left, especially when the universities, when you're thinking, why are they so left? Why are they brainwashing? Because they're atheist. Yeah. Just to be honest with you, you're talking about atheistic ideology in Antifa. You're talking about in the college. You're talking about in the MSN and the mainstream media. These people don't believe in God. They don't believe in giving people the freedom. We believers, people that are Christians, are the most tolerant. The reason this nation has so many people is because we are the most tolerant nation in the world, because we are Christians. And we are predominantly the Judeo-Christian ethic, which is a tolerant. When you go to Israel, when you go to Israel is the one that allows every religion to practice there. Muslims can practice there. Christians can practice there. When you are of the Judeo ethic, when you are of the Christian ethic, which is the biblical directive, you are tolerant of everybody else. People can do what God has given people the right to choose. While you're on this planet, you have a right to choose. And so you can choose to be wrong. You have a right to be wrong in this nation, but you don't have a right to infringe my benefit. You don't have a right to take my friends on the left.
I say that to my friends on the left. You have the right to be wrong, and I have the right to be right.
That's right. Yeah, I wish I could remember the scripture in the Bible that says talks about going left or going right. You know, it's actually it's almost prophetic. It's like, wow, I wonder if God knew this was
Yeah,
going to be the language. It's like God knows everything, so who knows? But
I know. Well, Jerry, it's really been such a pleasure to talk to you. I have really enjoyed it.
my honor. I just want to tell everybody who's listening that Juan Carlos is one of the most amazing people I've ever known. And I know a lot of people. I happen to be somebody who knows a lot of people. Juan Carlos is one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life.
Thank you.
One of the most well educated. People talk about learning in higher college. Let me tell you something. If you want to be educated, you can be educated. You don't have to have a higher education university. As a matter of fact, they will dumb you down. You see it happening all over today. They're dumbing smart kids down, and it's just a shame. I have friends who are professors that I hate to say, I don't want them to get inspected at Princeton, at some, and they are amazing, wonderful Christians, and they're outspoken about their belief. They're not shy of it or anything like that, or ashamed of it by any means. But you have to pray all the time that they're going to be able to keep a job, because their voice is so tiny in comparison to the voice of the left. We have to be vigilant, and I just want to say thank you, Juan Carlos, because you are a vigilant man. You are a man, a force to be reckoned with, because if somebody's going to have a disagreement with you, they better come with the facts, not just some philosophical dream that they just decided about in their feelings and their emotions, because you know what you're talking about, and you've done the job to educate yourself, and you are somebody to be looked up to and to be admired. And I love you, my friend.
I love you too, my friend. I learned so much from you. You were my first mentor, and I'm
I hope
eternally
that
grateful.
I'm worried about that, because thank God it's a miracle that you came out so well.
Well, no, you really helped me walk the first years in this country. I used to call you so many times. Remember, hey Jerry, what do you think about this? How should I write that? I mean, what should I put in that newsletter? I mean, how should I talk to the pastor? I mean, I made so many phone calls, and
You are
I really,
such a great student. You are an extraordinary learner. You are a gifted learner. God gave you a gift of understanding, and you are a gifted learner. You know how to ask the right questions in order to find the truth, and in order to find what needs to be done. And God put that in you. He put it in your heart, in your nature, in your mind, and in your spirit. And anybody that has the privilege of being associated to Juan Carlos del Valle has a just a
uh,
and they have a blessing that they don't know.
well, it has come at a price. Look at my hair, Jerry.
I know.
I'm getting ready to color it tomorrow.
Yeah, you have to take my hair coloring tips, Nick. I remember when it was full head and Mr. Handsome and
Yeah.
but people, I want people to know that you were in danger for your beliefs in Cuba, and very much so in danger. You were bold, you were outspoken. We would go be very bold in many of the things we did, but they didn't know how many times we had to sneak out in a hurry because the police were coming for you and coming for us to,
Quite a
try.
number of times we had to do that. I mean,
Oh,
it was quite a
oh,
number of times.
yeah, you had to be snuck in the back of a trunk one time. I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
Juan Carlos, I think it's time for, and I don't really encourage people overseas. I try to keep them from coming. Everybody, this is such a bad. Why are millions and tens of millions of people lined up trying to get in? Nobody tries to break into a place that's horrific, that's full of racists, that's full of people that are just so bad. No, the people are trying to come in here any way they can, because they know that this is a
Yeah,
country of freedom. And
absolutely.
so that's
This is a
why
great country.
I encouraged you at one point. I thought, you know what, Juan Carlos, for your life, you need to keep speaking, and
Yeah,
people were going to kill you. As far as I'm concerned, that you were going to be killed, and so I'm
yeah.
glad that
Well,
you missed out.
Thank God we're alive. Thank God I'm vertical. Hallelujah. So anyway, but listen, it's really been an amazing honor to be with you. I hope that we can do it again. And I want to thank everybody who's watching for, we've been an hour and a half, almost an hour and a half. That's amazing.
Wow.
I mean, time really flies really quickly. So,
Yeah.
but I love you, my friend. Say hi to your beautiful wife, and I'll be in contact with you, and let's do it again sometime. All right?
My honor and privilege. All right.
Okay. I love you guys. I'm gonna sign off. I want to say thank you for everybody watching, and keep looking at new videos. I'm doing a new video in a couple of days with Suni Dorman. She is an amazing luminary. She's a professor of history, and you don't want to miss this woman. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next program. And thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.